In this January '85 launch, the O-rings nearly failed. Why? Cold weather. Roger Beaujolais made the discovery in a post-flight inspection of the O-rings.
Damn near had cardiac arrest. What I saw was a direct result of the cold weather that preceded that launch.
As we've seen, the joints on the rocket boosters shift slightly while in use, creating a gap to be sealed by the O-rings. But Beaujolais and other engineers at Morton Thiokol believed the cold made the O-rings less flexible, reducing their ability to seal the joint. In January '85, the primary O-ring failed, but the backup O-ring held the seal.
I knew how close we had come to blowing it out of the sky.
Perhaps most disheartening were the details of the attempt to stop the launch.
I made the direct statement that if anything happened to this launch, told them I sure wouldn't want to be the person that had to stand in front of a board of inquiry.
The general public really doesn't understand that we had the information to stop the launch.
The day before liftoff, after hearing the forecast of an Arctic cold front, a NASA engineer made an informal call to a friend at Morton Thiokol. He wondered, were they concerned about launching in such cold weather?
A small group of us gathered together inside the company.
The engineers feared that severe cold would further hinder the effectiveness of the O-rings.
Within minutes decided, this baby's not going to launch. This is absolutely suicide.
Phone conversations between Thiokol and middle managers at NASA lasted well into the night. Thiokol said it could not endorse a launch in such cold weather. NASA pointed to evidence of O-ring damage during a warm weather flight, raising the question, was temperature really a factor? In addition, NASA argued that the joint problem was one of many acceptable flight risks.
We made a considered judgment that based on the type of damage we had seen, based on ground tests that we had done, that it would be safe to continue to fly with that flawed joint.
Lawrence Malloy, one of the NASA managers involved in the teleconference, explained NASA's thinking.
The judgment was that we would be taking no more risk on flying Challenger the next morning than we had been previously.
He made such comments as, "My God, Thiokol, when do you want me to launch? Next April?"
I knew Thiokol didn't think they were going to have to wait until April. But what I was trying to get through to him is you need to consider the effect of your recommendation.
Our guys got the message, big time.
And so, 10 hours after the first phone call, Morton Thiokol management changed its position and now supported NASA's desire to launch. The O-ring debate had ended. None of the NASA participants ever passed the concerns of the chain of command. Around 11 p.m., NASA's launch director, Gene Thomas, arrived to oversee final preparations. He says he was never informed about the O-ring controversy.
It's tragic that down in the bowels of the organization that something was going on that did not get elevated to the launch director or to the proper management level.
There they are, the crew of Mission 51L.
Near daybreak, when the crew assembled for breakfast, they too were unaware of the O-ring arguments.
We have great faith in the system and great faith in those who were there to support the launch.
90 seconds and counting.
By launch time, according to the National Weather Service, the cold front had sent temperatures plummeting to 25 degrees, with devastating consequences for the O-rings. In the first milliseconds after ignition, in the bottom joint of one of the solid rocket boosters, the rigid, ice-cold O-rings failed to expand. The joint did not seal, and superhot gases started to escape. Evidence of this is seen at launch when a puff of black smoke escapes, but it's not until about 58 seconds into the flight that a flame can be seen burning through the booster joint. The flame hit the external fuel tank in the area close to a metal strut that connects it with the solid rocket booster. At about 64 seconds, the flame penetrated the liquid hydrogen tank that is inside the giant fuel tank. Leaking liquid hydrogen fed the flame. It intensified. About 8 seconds later, the strut and the surrounding area became extremely weak. The booster became partially disconnected. Almost simultaneously, several events unfolded. The bottom of the liquid hydrogen tank fell away. The force of the escaping fuel sent it crashing towards the liquid oxygen tank above. The top of the solid rocket booster slammed into the collapsing liquid oxygen tank. The massive release of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen caused the spectacular fireball. Inside that cloud, the shuttle broke apart into countless pieces. One of those pieces was the crew compartment, the pressurized, self-contained unit that stayed intact. It is highlighted here in these historic but rarely seen images.
The astronauts were alive. The vehicle continued to climb and fell from some 9 to 12 miles up.
It was a plunge that took about 2.5 minutes. NASA's official position is, quote, "It is possible but not certain that the crew lost consciousness."
Judy Resnick, who was sitting behind Commander Dick Scobie and pilot Mike Smith, reached over and turned on the oxygen packs.
If somebody turned them on, it means they survived the explosion and had time to initiate some emergency procedures, like turning on the oxygen pack.
It's estimated that the crew compartment hit the ocean at 207 miles per hour.
They were still in their seats. The impact took its toll. Okay? Without getting too morbid and going into details. But you can rest assured they did not survive the impact.
The crew compartment shattered on impact and settled in 87 feet of water. A tracer signal provided a clue to the location, but it wasn't until March 7th that the Navy retrieved it. And it wasn't until April 19th, 81 days after launch, that all the remains of the crew members were returned to the Cape. Then they were flown to Dover Air Force Base, where they were given a dignified farewell.